All
So
right.
we'll do that.
Third time is the charm. Welcome, Chrystee Pharris. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely.
Chrystee Pharris, series regular on Craig Ross Jr.'s
Monogamy. Yeah, girl.
Mahogany. I'm taking you back
Listen, it took me a minute to try to say it when I kept calling
back
it.
to Diana Ross.
Exactly. Because that's where you want to go. We Black. That's where we want to go.
So fabulous. Also, the host of This Week on Black People Shit. You got how many episodes of that you have now?
Well, originally we had 50 when it was just a vlog, which were like 2 or 3 minutes. And I think we're rolling up on 10 episodes as a panel talk show.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And then we have a Teen People Stuff, This Week in Teen People Stuff, where we have kids around the world
that's awesome.
talking about their experience while they're going through what they're going, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter, all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that is such an interesting, not having kids in the house anymore. I feel so much for people whose children are experiencing this and need an outlet and need to talk to someone and express themselves, because it's a whole new world for them, for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, that a lot of the kids didn't hear it from their parents about the George Floyd. They heard it from social media and their friends. Some of them had conversations with their parents. Some of them didn't. Some of them have seriously been affected by it. Some have not. It's a very interesting journey to hear their stories.
I know. And I almost wonder too, if they're not affected or if they can't even process it. You know what I mean? I wonder if that's a mix of those two. But I've seen the things too, where the kids are talking to their parents and their parents are telling them awful things. They're actually educating their parents who are racist, and the kids, I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of those. Some of the white kids that have gone through some stuff. So.
Well, this month is July is BIPOC Mental Health Month. That's Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Mental Health Awareness Month. Started by B.B. Moore Campbell originally. That's Maya Campbell's
mother.
For people who don't know, B.B. Moore Campbell, the author. And, it's so timely. I feel like so much is going on. I would be remiss if we did not at least touch on Kanye for 1 second.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on?
I mean, I'm saddened by his actions. I am saddened by the reaction of people who like to make fun of him. And I'm saddened that nobody is keeping him under control. I think if his mother was still here, I think a lot of this stuff would not be happening. But I think that because his mother is gone, no one has control, and his wife needs to step in a little bit more than what she's doing. Because mental health is something serious, and he obviously has a mental health issue.
Right. And one of the reasons you're a guest is because you've had some experience with family members with mental illness, persistent. So you have some mental illnesses that can be situational, depression or anxiety that may come and be relieved. But then you have severe and persistent mental illnesses, which would be bipolars, schizophrenias, maybe borderline, stuff like that. When you dealt with it, because I think about Kim and the family, and I know how hard it is to get your family member help, even when you want to, what I mean? Yeah. And they have money and power, and the fact that even she is unable to get him the help he needs because, the law says, he has a right to choose, even if he doesn't have insight.
Right.
Did you encounter any of that with your own personal situation?
So I'll talk about a couple of different things. The first thing I'll talk about is I always felt like depression ran in my family. And as happy as I always was, there was always a borderline depression. And I think especially when things weren't going right. And one of the things I remember my pastor saying to me was, depression is dwelling in the past in the now. And so how I had to get through it and how I talked myself into getting through it, like sometimes I would be down if something happened, like say for instance, I didn't book a TV show. That's when things were like super, super, super big back then. and I wouldn't book a show, and it would take me like 2 weeks to get over it. And then what I started doing was giving myself credit. Like, okay, so instead of it taking 2 weeks, let's see if I can get through it in a week. And then if I got through it in a week, I would praise myself and be like, yes, I did it. And then it was, maybe I can get over it in a day, and allow myself to stay in a day. And then it became an hour, and then it became 30 minutes. And that was how I was able to get through the sadness or the depression, because I always feel like, okay, life is over now. Like it's not.
The life of an artist, people do not understand. It is much rejection. You have to have such a ridiculously thick skin.
It is insane. So that was the first thing that I did to help myself get through it. And then the second thing that helped me get through it was to start volunteering and working with kids, and volunteering at a women's shelter and then a women's prison. So all these different things is what kind of helped me to take the focus off of me and make me more present, because it's all about being present. You know what I mean? When you're dwelling in the past, you're dwelling in that situation, that's when you're going to fall into depression.
And volunteering is so good because it also helps you with perspective.
Yes, it really does. And
this is, and just to preface, this is situational depression. This isn't like clinical.
Correct.
Clinical, chemical depression. So just to preface that.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not, it's definitely not the same. And then we jumped to my brother's situation, who was bipolar and schizophrenic. And so
which is commonly referred to as schizoaffective disorder. So when you have the bipolar element and the schizophrenic element, that's often called schizoaffective these days.
Okay, I had no idea.
There's a lot.
Because listen,
I know too much.
Right. Well, I mean, because in the 80s, we didn't really... we didn't know anything like that. We didn't know the stuff that he was going through. And then the 90s, we definitely didn't know. Well, by that time he was on his own, because he was, had moved out and was in college. And then he started having these breakdowns and,
How did that present? Now, when you were younger, do you remember anything specifically? How did you notice, or was it not until his adolescent years or his young adulthood?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think we recognized any of this stuff. I don't even know if he had it when he was younger, but I know in his teenage years, when he was in high school, I didn't see him because my mom worked from 8 to 4 in the morning. So my brother was out in the streets until like 2 o'clock in the morning, kicking it. And I mean, listen, he got good grades. He was a football star. So it wasn't like he was, doing any... I mean, I don't know what he was doing because he was out there being a teenager. But he was holding it down while he was doing whatever teenage stuff he was doing.
Exactly.
That teenagers do. They hanging out, doing whatever they doing.
Yeah.
But when I hear stories from some of his friends of some of the things that was happening years and years and years and years and years later, like probably in the last 10 or 15 years, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize he was going through that when we were, growing up.
Well, and often I will say bipolar, especially schizophrenia, it usually, the onset is for men somewhere between like 15 and 25. So it's quite possible that he wasn't exhibiting symptoms and it maybe happened in early adulthood or when he went off to college. It is a very prominent thing. And one thing I think it is important for people to know because we're in COVID, so nobody's sending their kids to college right now. But a lot of times the kids will go to college and you think, oh, well, these changes, you don't know what to make of them. You don't realize, they may be starting to suffer from a significant illness because, they've got great grades in high school and they were on the football team and all of these things. And then that can change so fast. And I think that's one really hard thing for family members to adjust to also.
It was tough because, at some point in time, he was homeless.
This is in his college years, or this is when he's older? When is
older?
That?
When he was older.
What's your first memory of, oh, my brother's different than he was growing up?
He just at some point in time started to lose contact, and then, we thought it was a drug situation. And then when I talked to his girlfriend that he had 2 kids by, she told me all kind of crazy stuff that he used to do, like crazy abusive things, like putting her in the closet or, like just little things that, and she was like, yeah, he wasn't well. And it just was unfortunate because his kids never got a chance to really know him. Like they met him twice in his life when they were really super young. My nephew doesn't remember him at all. And then I would say maybe 10 years ago or so, they got a chance to meet him briefly. He seemed to have been doing a little bit better at the time. He was in jail because he was homeless for a long time. And then I think he sort of kind of volunteered being in jail because it gave him food. It gave him a place to stay. It gave him discipline. They put him on his meds. And I think he really, really liked that.
Right.
And so I got a chance to see him when he was there. And then when he got out, I think he got back on drugs, went back down the Skid Row, and ended up being down there for a while. But I do have a positive story. I'll let you jump in. I do have a positive story.
I'll just say this because I do think it's important. I don't think people realize that prisons are actually like America's biggest mental health care facility. Because it is so difficult to get your loved one help. People will advise you, like, try to get them arrested because there is no way to intervene until they are a danger to themselves or others or committing a crime, which is, I think, an indictment of like what we value in society, what we're allowing. So your story makes perfect sense. There's so many people who don't get on their meds and get back on track until they're in prison because before then, as much as Kim might want to help or you might have wanted to help or I might want to help, your hands are literally tied. And that is madness. You know what I mean? It's like, we think they're mad. No, we're mad for this situation. How could prison be the place you go for help for mental illness? It's just,
it was tough. And also too, when he was in prison, he was in a level 2, which is specifically for people who deal with drugs in some way, shape, or form. So he wasn't on complete lockdown. They had some type of freedom, but ironically, I ran into a guy who worked at the prison that my brother was in. So what ended up happening, I didn't realize how emotional this was going to be. I don't know if I'm prepared for all this.
It's happened a couple of times, and it's like,
Yeah, I didn't realize, especially too because, I never really talked about it as a celebrity because you're always, you're always trying to keep this stuff under wraps, right? You don't want people to know. And I remember when I was on Passions at the time, and I went to visit my brother in prison, and this guy recognized me from the show. So he ran around and told everybody, oh my God, she's from Passions, da, 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 da. Well, it happened to be one of the guards was somewhat of a friend of mine because we used to do these celebrity events, basketball games, and he was the security for the basketball games. And I happened to go to a celebrity basketball game, all hype and like, hey, yay, doing all my little thing and waving. And he came up to me, he was like, yo, why didn't you tell me your brother was in prison? And I was like, what? Like so thrown off, so not expecting, because I didn't really talk about my brother at the time.
And also,
here's the thing.
Did you have a rapport that it would have just come up, or like, you know what I mean?
I think he meant well. He meant well. His thing was, he was like, we need to talk. You need to call me. I need to tell you what's going on with your brother.
Oh, because he had access.
I understand. And at the time, I didn't know what was happening, and so, but it was like such a like a sucker punch. It's like if you did something when you were a kid or did something you weren't supposed to do, or somebody found out about something in your life that you did,
right,
and somebody comes and throws it in your face, you're like,
and you're not supposed to talk about it. You know what I mean?
It was like,
especially
taboo.
our community. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you don't.
If we even recognize that it's real, because a lot of times we always, like you said, the number of people bashing Kanye have no idea that mental illness is an illness, as if he had any other cancer or diabetes or anything else that would need to be managed. They just cannot see that. And there is so much stigma and shame, which let me say, because I did not say in the beginning, I just applaud you for your bravery and your courage and your openness and your willingness to share your story so that it will help other people share their stories and know that it does not have to be under the rug, and that healing comes when we bring things to light. So thank you so much. I appreciate you just tremendously.
Thank you.
And that estrangement that you faced, so many face. So many people don't know where their loved ones are.
Listen, so my brother passed away actually in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It'll be 2 years that he's been gone. And we got that dreadful phone call. I hadn't talked to him in probably 10 years. And had no idea that he was literally right around the corner from me. Like, he was in Long Beach.
That's amazing.
And
do you think it's because he just didn't have your information? Was he just estranged? Because sometimes they are. I think when they go through these episodes, they become embarrassed and kind of want to pull away from their family.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
he just. I think he was just embarrassed. So we got the phone call from this organization that's in Long Beach that helps people get off the streets. They set them up on SSI. They take them to go get food. They don't say anything about them doing drugs unless it's like too crazy. But they kind of keep them on track. So they take them to go get food. They take care of their checks. They get them a checking account.
That's great, actually.
I mean, they do all these.
Maybe you should share that information. I'll put it in a link below.
Yeah, I would love to. I'll definitely give it to you, because I know at some point in time after I'm able to get through the pain, because I lost my dad like 6 months after my brother died. So it was just like being like, it was insane. Like, it was just insane. And so a very, very hard time for me. And so my dad he passed away in January. My brother died in August. My dad passed away in January. So it was a year in January this year. And but the great thing about it was two things that gave me a little bit of peace. I cried more about my brother passing than I did about my dad passing, because I wanted to say goodbye. I wanted him to know how much I loved him, and I didn't get a chance to do that. So that was hard. But what was awesome was that he wasn't homeless.
Yeah.
They said he was doing really well. They said he kept himself clean and he had clippers. My brother was a fanatic about keeping his hair like so gorgeous. Yeah. Like, he used to cut the whole football team's hair, and so they called and they did like a little memorial for him, and they spoke and they said, how protective he was. They said how proud he was of me and how he's like, my sister's a big superstar. She's a movie star. And so I don't know if they thought he was lying or exaggerating the truth about his life and how he was this big football star. And And so I brought all of these pictures. I made this collage of these pictures of all of his life growing up from when he was a little boy all the way until, you know, he was an adult. And so I showed all these pictures and they were like, wow, he talked about this. And I had him like, you know, showing a picture of him cutting hair, you know, like cutting hair in the mirror. And I had him, you know, pictures of him cutting hair of the football team. And then I showed all the football teams when they went to the prom. And I think they thought, you know, you know, people always exaggerate their lives and you don't know if they're telling the truth. But when I showed all the pictures, they were like, wow. But they just said how much, how proud he was of me and how he was doing really well. And then,
and that's so great to know that he was still, you know, following you. And even though he may have felt estranged, you know, he was proud of you and loves you. And
but the hard thing that was the bittersweet was when they told me that, you know, they were talking about how he said how proud he was of me. And they said, well, why don't you reach out? And he was like, yeah, no, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a burden. And that right there, I just lost it because I was like, if you just would have called, like we all just wanted to see you. So,
and I think that's such a message, I think, for people who are suffering from mental illness, who feel like they are going to be a burden. It's like they're people who love you and they want to hear from you and they want the best for you. And especially he's in an amazing program and he's, you know, getting on the right track. It's like your family would love nothing more than to support that. So if that's you and you haven't seen your family, you know, reach out to them because they love you. I can say they love you. And it's a difficult thing because families who deal with mental illness, like, you know, there's so many things that happen. You know, we kind of see it publicly with the Kanye West, so many things that seemingly break bonds or strain relationships. But your family loves you and they just want to see you get on the right track. And I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't support that, even though I understand that guilt or shame or embarrassment that could be felt from episodes, but it's not your fault. And, you know, it's for families to really try to understand it's not their fault. Families who have resentment or hold grudges, you know, it's a never ending process to forgive because it's not their fault.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want to have the generational curse of, you know, the next generation falling into the same trap, especially with his kids, you know, just because
How are his kids? Are they doing okay?
I mean, you know, they're, you know, it's hard. It's hard when you feel like one of your parents didn't love you and all you can continue to keep telling them is that, you know, it was a mental illness. There was, you know, nothing that he can do. And he felt like staying away would benefit you more than to be in your life. But as a kid growing up, those words don't help.
And I think even adults don't understand it. I think until we get to the place where we understand what mental illness is and take it seriously and not just think it's somebody's choice, you know, that it is chemical imbalances in the brain which is the reason people self-medicate. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people think that drugs cause mental illness, but really mental illness, when you are suffering, you go to drugs because you're trying to bring some calm or bring some relief to yourself. And I think statistics say like 60 to 80% of people with the mental illness also struggle with substance abuse. So I just think we have to get away from blaming drugs, blaming them for being on drugs when treatment is so hard to get and so hard to maintain. Because another hallmark is, you know, if you have a problem, if you got asthma, you can't breathe, you know, I have a problem, I can't breathe, I got to go talk to the doctor. But people with mental illness, especially the more severe ones, anagnosia, I think is how you pronounce it. Anagnosia is lack of insight. It means you're sick, but you think everyone else has an issue. You're really
Right.
convinced of your own illness, and you don't know that you're sick. And so, you know, you can't, that's the biggest barrier to getting them help. And so I think if we could educate ourselves and end some of that stigma, because I do think Black people also fare worse. Fare worse than white people. White people they're far more accepting of mental illness being an issue and being real. And, you know, we have to get better, and we have to get there, I think. And that will provide a safe place for people who are dealing with the various conditions, and, you know, just maybe help keep some of these bonds that are so easily strained and broken.
Okay. And we're back.
I know. Quick touch-up break.
Yeah.
So tell me, so for your mental health, what have you done just to sort of stay, you know, keep in a good place, heal, move forward? I mean, you've had 2 very difficult losses. Now there's COVID. I think the Black community collectively is experiencing daily trauma from these videos, and even opening up that dialogue, kind of just like us, right? We open a dialogue, and then all of a sudden emotions that we didn't even know were there pop up, which I know I have experienced since the Black Lives Matter protest, just facing those things that you were doing on autopilot that you're like, wait a minute, that's not right. Why? You know, so how has that experience been? Just feel free to talk about any part of that.
I mean, you know, I was in the middle of doing a show, the show of a lifetime. I was doing fences in New York City, not New York City, but New York, Syracuse. And all of a sudden they were like, pack up. We're putting you on a plane in an hour. You know, there's cases are starting to come here, and we're trying to get you out. And
yeah, you're in the epicenter.
Right.
So, in the beginning?
Well, we weren't in New York City. We were in Syracuse. So it wasn't as bad. But I had to literally jump on a plane and leave. And then we got back, and I had like 5 friends that same week that had family members, parents who had died. So I was like, oh my God. And then then we're thinking, okay, this is just going to be for the month of March. And you were like, oh, we're rolling into April. And now I'm depressed because I'm watching people die. I don't know what's happening. And I'm also thinking about the shows that we were supposed to be shooting, and now they're not happening. So then you're like, okay, well, all of this money that's usually my cushion and all of that, because we're artists, right? Yeah. So you don't know if you're going to work again.
Right. So like, then, what's really going on? Is there going to be any ad money for these commercials? Like, what are we doing? Exactly?
I know. I'm like, so all these shows that I was supposed to be shooting is now not happening. So, so then I said, okay, I knew that if I didn't get something accomplished in this time period that we were down, because we thought it was going to end in June or July, right? I said, I have to get something accomplished, because I'll be more depressed and hating on myself if I don't get anything done. And that's when I started doing the This Week in Black People shit again, and the teen,
which was so timely that even you started that so long ago. And look how timely
I know. Listen, I have been posted some of the old episodes, the vlogs, the 3-minute vlogs.
They were great,
people just like, thank you. And they were like, wow, this is today. Like, you can post this today and it'll still be the same. And it just so happened that and that's nothing but God, like, telling me to move, because the week that we started, we were airing that Wednesday, and Memorial Day weekend on that Monday is when George Floyd got killed. So we talked about it on that Wednesday. So I think that was that Monday, and we talked about it on Wednesday. So it became this thing. So what has gotten me through was talking about it on the show. And that's what also has gotten other people through, is because they're like, you have no idea how much this has helped me, because I didn't realize how much trauma was in my body. Because as Black people, we have, we've always grown up having to say, you know what, that's just what they do. That's
keep it moving.
Yep. You know what, brush it off, keep it going.
Yep.
And you don't realize, like, I was talking to a girlfriend, her mother's 90, and she's been having nightmares since George Floyd got
Her
killed.
mother has been having?
Her mother, and she's 90. She's been having nightmares because all of the trauma that she has been through is now starting to come up.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for me and everybody else, because all these things that you start thinking about, because, you know, now the conversation is open and you're like,
right.
Yeah, well, you know, this happened when I was in school and this person did this.
Right.
And, you know.
Yeah. You know, my agents had a whole talk with their Black clients on Zoom.
That's great.
It was great. And it was tripped out, and they were like, we want to listen. We want to know, you know, what's like, they had never even, so, you know, one girl was talking about how, like, you know, there's never anyone to do hair, you know, like, I know, like, I'll stay up to 3:00 in the morning doing my hair before a shoot because, you know, and she said
bring my own makeup. And bring my own makeup to set all the time. And I always bring my own makeup.
100%.
Unapologetically too.
Yeah, so. And she was just talking, you know, and she was she was talking about it, and then she started crying, and they were all stunned because it was nothing they had even considered. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, I'm crying about having to do my own hair. I mean, it was just the strangest thing, something that is rote. I didn't even think about it. Like, oh, I got to do my hair. It's like you start to just really see this supremacy and how it affects, like, even the most minute things that I've been doing this for years. It's never even crossed my mind to be upset about having to do my own hair.
Let me tell you what happened to me on the best show that ever happened to me, which was Passions. I mean, the best experience in my life. But what I had heard was the girl that got fired prior to me. I don't know if it's true, but what I had heard is one of the reasons why they got rid of her was because they were having so many hair issues. You know what I mean? So I got on the show. And let me tell you something. Not only, okay, so you see how long this wig is. This ain't my hair right now, but this is what my hair used to look like until I cut it in March. But
which is so cute, by the way.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. So my hair was actually all the way down here, like past my breast. By the time we ended the first month of the show, my hair went from all the way down here to here, because it was more like here. All of this burned off, like more all the way down here.
Even my hair, girl, it would be this, and they would try to take my hair like this and like ringlet curl it, and it just would be like shorter as it went on.
So I was like, what is going on? So finally she did my hair, and I was like, oh my God, this looks a hot mess. Like, you're really gonna let me go on camera looking like this? And I started crying, and I left the room, and I, was like, oh, dramatic. Let me tell you something. They came up in my room and was like, look, we ain't going for this. And I was like, so I learned, I said, from now on, I will be getting my hair done.
Like, you can't, they're going for what? You would be complaining about your hair?
We're not going to be complaining about hair up in here. Listen, they checked my ass so quickly. Excuse me for swearing. They checked me so quickly, and I learned my lesson. I said, yeah, because I like this job. So I'm just going to do my hair.
And that is what happens, right? It's like you don't want to lose the job so often. And that's why I really appreciated the conversation with my agents. And they were like, you know what? Well, we'll start putting it in the contract that just someone has to be able to do, just. But even that's interesting, right? Because it's still a hierarchy. It's still, I mean, I love it. I appreciate it, but it's still like a certain people advocating for these little parts of what you need, as opposed to overall diversity. They said another very interesting thing that in the middle of one casting session, they were like, oh, well, they were talking about one actor or actress, I can't remember. And they were like, but they're so dark. It's going to be too hard to light.
Listen,
that was stunning to me. To becoming,
I'm not, because I get so mad. I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the screen, looking at some of my darker skinned actors that are working. And I remember just looking like, I cannot believe that they're not going to put no light on him.
Oh, no, I understand that part. But I actually was a little bit stunned that it played into a casting decision.
Oh,
I don't know. Like, I mean, of course, I have been on set and it switches the white girl to me. They're like, oh my goodness, we're going to need some reflectors and some, you know what I mean? And so I do, yes, there's a whole nother issue of the lighting, but for it to actually be in people's minds when they're casting was stunning to me.
I was looking at this one young lady who she was a guest on a show. and she had a stunt double, and she was
I
a
saw
chocolate
that.
sister, and they painted her all the way dark. And what was fascinating, which is what they all say to us, which is when she complained about it, you know, they were like, well, you should be grateful.
I know.
And that's exactly how they make us feel. Like, we should be grateful that we're working. You're replaceable. You're replaceable.
And actors in general, I think, feel that way. But I think actors, you know, of color, you know, it's just an exponentially larger issue. And just the thought, like, there are no Black stunt people is absurd.
I had like 4 stunt doubles that were Black. I know tons of them.
But the problem,
but they just don't know how to find them.
Well, yeah, because
or do they even want to?
No, because they have a cousin or a niece or a nephew or a friend of a friend. Because Hollywood is really, it's nepotism, you know, and that's why it's gonna have to start in the. I mean, either you're gonna have to go create your own, or at the very top. I mean, I know we talk about diversity in on the screen, but it's got to be executive producers, writers, you know, directors, heads of companies.
Listen,
it's going to have to be so much bigger than just throwing some Black faces on the screen.
Let me tell you a story that happened to me. Now, mind you, you know, I think I'm like the queen of, like, you know, because I get called in everything. And 9 times out of 10, I was the only Black girl, especially for like CBS and a lot of the different networks. And I was on fire because I just came off Passions. I just did Scrubs. I had tested for a show. So like, I'm on fire, right? So I go in for this audition, don't think anything of it, for a casting director named Bruce. No big deal, whatever. It's for CBS. And I leave, and then out of the blue, 2 weeks later, I get this call back, and they're like, hey, they want to see you in like 2 hours. Now, mind you, I live all the way in the valley. I got to drive all the way over there. I got to get dressed. I got to pull the sides out of the garbage. I still need to look at it because I haven't looked at it in 2 weeks. It's 8 pages. Right. And I'm thinking, are you sure? And they're like, no, just go. They love you. They want to see you. And again, at that time, CBS was on my, you know, like, they loved me because they were also at the time a part of the CW and, CW didn't exist, Warner Brothers, WB and UPN, and they had combined to CW. So they really loved me because I did all the Warner Brothers shows and UPN shows back then. So I'm all excited. I get to the audition. Everybody in there is white. But I ain't think anything because, you know, I'm Chrystee Pharris. Like, I'm that girl, right? So I asked some of the other ones, hey, when did you get your audition? Oh, last week. Oh, the night before. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now they got everybody in there for like 20 minutes, right? Because it's the biggest cast. I mean, the biggest director ever. And it's a director's work session. So he's going to work you. Man, everybody's in there for 20 minutes. I get in there and I do my first scene. I nail it. I'm like, go ahead, Chrystee, for somebody who just looked at this an hour before. Like, you the shit, right? I get in there. I do the first scene. I see the casting director shake his head like, good job. I see the producers like shake their head. Yeah, good job. And the director, I did the second scene. The director looked at me and was like, okay, great. Thank you. And I was like, what? So here's the thing. So I walk out, I cuss my agent out because I'm like, I cannot believe that just happened to me. Like, don't ever put me in this position because I'm embarrassed. Like, at least he could have said hi and like, where are you from or anything like that. But at least make it look like, you know, something. Right. And I know that I nailed the audition. I nailed it. I find out that the casting director and the head of diversity at CBS had to fight to get me in the room because the director did not want to see anybody Black. And that crushed me. And then the same week, I get an audition where it's the lead girl. She has a whole family. And at that time, we knew that if the character had a whole family, we knew they weren't going to go Black. Right. Because they're not going to hire a whole Black cast, right? Yeah. So I asked my agent, you need to call them and tell them, you know, are they really going to go Black? This is 16 pages. And next thing you know, of course, I didn't really think they were going to do it. And I really didn't think they would say it. But they called and it was like, yeah, they're off the record. They're not going Black. And I about lost it. And after that, I'm still traumatized. I hate going into auditions. Now, I was the audition queen, but to this day, I'm still traumatized by that experience. And, you know, I'm trying to get over it. And
I mean, and on one hand, you know, you have to appreciate casting trying to demand a seat at the table for you, because it does start there. But then again, it's like, you know, maybe there shouldn't be tolerance for that kind of director, especially when you're talking about, I'm assuming that role before was a guest or recurring. Or
no. This was a series of regulars.
That for the
and they didn't hire anybody of color.
I know, girl, I've been in those rooms too many times. Yeah. Nobody. And it's so crazy. Like, nobody sees. I mean, but I do think nobody sees it, because who's going to see it? The whole set looks like that. I mean, do you think if there was a bunch of black gaffers, they would be like, oh, she's too hard to light? No. You know what I mean? It's like the vantage point that you're working off of is whiteness. Because even if you got I've been on many sets with a diverse cast and zero diversity outside of that stage. Right. You know what I mean? So you have to appreciate that some people are willing to fight, but clearly it needs to go higher than that. And there needs to be no tolerance somewhere for that. I mean, it doesn't.
And I also think that they just need to hire some new, like, they need to just, you know how they want to defund the police? They need to defund the whole entire entertainment, you know, Fox, CBS, all of them, you know, get rid of everybody and start all over, so that you do have directors and producers who are of people of color, so that people can get hired. Now, one thing that
because it is going to be the people they know. Yeah. And if people want to do something personally, expand the people you know. If you don't have one black person you talk to on the phone now, or one white person if you're black, or Asian, or whatever that you have talked to personally in the last 6 months, you got to expand your circle.
And they don't do it. People just don't do it. And here's one thing that I do want to give credit to Jason Kennedy, who's a casting director for CBS, NCIS Los Angeles. Incredible guy. He came on my show on This Week in Black People Shit. And I put
is it a Y? Because I didn't put a Y. I didn't know if it was a Y. Is it shit?
Well, it's SH and then a little asterisk T. Yeah.
Okay. I'll correct that on Instagram.
No worries. But he came on the show, and I wanted to bring him on the show, besides the fact that he's an amazing casting director. And don't get me wrong, there's so many amazing people. We're only talking about the stuff that we've experienced, and it doesn't happen all the time.
And there's people who will fight for you. I mean, like I said, I think you have to give them credit for fighting for you. You know what I mean?
Listen, but this guy right here is right now promoting Black actors, people who do have representation and who don't have representation. But I have seen on his page all of these young, talented Black actors who now have representation because he's posting them on his page. And I have to give him credit for even doing that. And his tag, if you're in the entertainment industry and you want your kid or you want yourself to be discovered, just use the hashtag promote Black actors. And if he likes your picture and then whatever, he'll post it on his page. And also people are going to that and looking at it at the same time. So there's people like him who are really out there trying to make a difference to help people of color get promoted.
I'll put that also in the info below. Absolutely.
And Kennedy Casting on Instagram.
Good job, Jason Kennedy.
Tell him I talked about him. That's my man right there. I love that. I love that man.
I love it. I mean, I do love, one thing I think is different about this period. You have had the trauma, which has been very real and I think new as a collective, but you also have the support of so many communities. I mean, the Black Lives Matter protests I've been to, have been some of them overwhelmingly Latino. You know, the people out there screaming, say her name. Yes. Young, on fire Latina girls or Latino, Latino men and just so many white Americans just joining and Asian Americans and Black people standing up whenever, there's racism against Asians because of COVID or immigrants and stuff.
But black people always stand up for other races.
I know we do.
That ain't nothing new. Look, you talking about stuff. We do that all the time. We have always
I know,
been the speaker for everybody of color.
Literally, you cannot hear one civil rights activist not mention like 30 other people. It's we are fighting for Black people of color, transgender, Latino, age. I mean, like we really do
gay,
do the
lesbian,
spectrum.
like we fighting for everybody.
Well, let me tell you what's interesting. So then also what I've been looking at that I also found fascinating is, so I'll be watching a show and they'll have, some like, one was a girl, it was a Japanese American girl. It was Native Americans, but they were talking, the Japanese American girl was saying how she was on a mission to address anti-Black racism within the Japanese community and how white supremacy was affecting the Japanese community in that way of also having the same vantage point of, we're the good. She said that I think a lot of people see a lot of, I don't know if it was specifically Japanese or Asian in general, but she was like, we see ourselves as the good minority, which is a vantage point given by white supremacy. So it's like we're all affected by it. You know what I mean? How we see each other to a degree, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean? But that has been so exciting. And I saw these Native Americans talking and, I'm for whatever the Native American. I'm like, you want to tear down Columbus, tear it down. They get Mount Rushmore, whatever the Native Americans want, I feel like they deserve.
You get it. You get everything.
It. Hands down. I don't care what it is. You know what I'm saying? They just got most of Oregon. Good job. I hope you get more. But they were also, so they were asking them questions and about Black Lives Matter and then was asking them about, some of their broken treaties. And I think it was PBS NewsHour I was watching. And he was like, but it is not time for that now. We stand with Black Lives Matter. And I was like, damn it.
Listen.
I love
because I got some Indian in me. You know that, right? I got some Indian.
It is outstanding. I was like, as awful as 2020 has been, there's some amazing things happening in 2020.
There have been some amazing things.
I'm stunned. It stunned me. Yeah. I like to think I'm open and not super rigid, which might just be my imagination, but it's just been an eye-opening time to see these protests in France, millions, in Lisbon, in London, in India, just
Holland,
everywhere. Yeah, it's incredible.
Listen, the fact that we had a Black Lives Matter in all 50 states. I had my pastor came on my show.
Who's your pastor? Where you go to church?
Kenneth C. Omer, Bishop Kenneth C. Omer, Faithful Central, and he did this. And this is another thing that got me through this Black Lives Matter stuff, because he spoke up. He was like, where are all my white friends? Where are all my white pastor friends? Like, I stand with you. You call me to ask me to pray with you. You call me, blah, blah, blah. But where are you when I'm hurting? Where are you when my people are hurting? Why are you not coming in my community?
Well, you might have to look at that congregation for that. I mean, did you see that one pastor who was like, we stand with Black Lives Matter, and the congregation voted him out?
Yes, I saw that. And that was the thing. Like,
today, right now, 49% of people who are admitting it in this YouGov poll, who are willing to admit it, are pro-Trump. 49% of white people right now. And that's just the people who are admitting it. So what is the number really? 60, 70?
Yeah. So he had like 9 of his friends that are all pastors that pastor at all these mega churches. Some of them were smaller too, but he had a deep conversation with them and was like, "But let me tell you what my problem is," And I mean, he broke it down, and I was like,
"Oh, that's excellent."
I was doing like this, like.
Tell him what the problem is, Pastor. Speak on it. Now, wait, did he Zoom? Was this a Zoom or how did
it was a Zoom, but he did it during service. He did do it during the service, and he had all of them like, he was like, but why are you not? This is what he said. If y'all don't take nothing else away, this is what you got to remember. This is what he said that got me, that made everybody go, ooh. He was like, none of y'all preaching that racism is a sin. And I said,
which is insane. I mean, it's not insane because we have seen how religion has been twisted and used for some of the worst, even in our country, some of the worst things. But it is insane. It's insane that you're a Christian and you think this sin is greater than that sin. And as long as you're anti this sin, oh, well, I'm now morally superior while you over there full of hate. You know what I'm saying?
And here's
full
the
of
thing.
hypocrisy.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, you think, you're a Christian and you think you're doing all this great thing, but you're a racist. So,
and I don't know why
that's a problem.
Have a problem understanding that they're racist. I mean, it's just weird to me. It's like, but what do you think? I mean, maybe people have to study what the definition of a racist is. Like, because what struck me is, I was an African-American studies minor back in college. And I always remembered Cleveland Sellers, my African-American studies professor, who was also part of SNCC and an amazing man in the civil rights movement. He was one of the people wounded in the Orangeburg massacre, all the freedom rides and everything, just outstanding legend in South Carolina. But I remember being in his class and he was showing us pictures of lynchings. And he was like, don't look at the bodies. Look at the people. These people were not in Ku Klux Klan outfits. These people, were not rogue police. There were women and children and men standing around, He's like, look at the faces. Smiling, laughing, while smoke from a body. I mean, I can't even. Like this. Can you imagine being somewhere smelling flesh burning and not being like nauseous, not being like sick? Yeah. So I don't know if those people would call themselves racist either. So I think what we have to do is just look at the definition of things and really try to be honest about your thoughts and behavior. And you don't have to say it, but you got to search your heart about it, especially if you want to be a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or whatever your religion is. I cannot imagine if you really look at the text, that hate would be a part of the deal.
And it's not.
Yeah. No, I think that is a wonderful thing, just that kind of soul searching and within all of us, because we're all affected by, we've seen Black celebrities with kind of anti-Black ideas, you know what I mean? So I think it's just a time for reflection for everybody, and maybe we should take that time.
It really is. I really hope that things change. I really hope that with all of this that has happened with, the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter, my prayer is that there's a healing over the next, 10 years. Everything changes every 10 years. So I'm not surprised that in 2020, this is happening. Yeah. And make sure that you take care of yourself. Make sure that you are taking walks and that, that you're staying healthy, that you're wearing your mask, that you're getting tested. I mean, to me,
wear the mask, please.
Right. And I always tell people, COVID-19 is the new STD. You get tested. Yeah, you can't come over to my house till you get tested. You can't be hanging around.
We can meet outside if you got your mask on and I got my mask on.
You know what I'm saying?
That's about as far as we can go with this. Absolutely. And you know what? It was interesting. I heard a lady yesterday, it was on the University of somewhere in San Fran, talk about it is a behavior change. And it was equally difficult to get people to start wearing condoms when HIV was huge. They had to close the bathhouses in San Fran. They had to sort of force this change upon people. And it had to be this behavioral change. And it's the same with masks, but not the same, but it's a behavioral change. We all just have to care about each other enough to do. It's the least that we can do, and it can have such a big effect. So yes, put the mask on, go vote, as Chrystee said. But before you go, tell us what you've been up to. Do you have anything going on? What projects are you working on? I know it's COVID, so
well, listen,
different now.
I know I'm a hustler, so I'm gonna always have something going on. That's one thing.
That's right.
But like I said,
Chrystee is a hustler. She ain't lying. You understand me?
I always
you ought to teach hustling 101 or maybe 201 because I feel like she's more advanced than 101.
Right. So like I said earlier, I have This Week in Black People Shed. That was one of the things that I started during this COVID situation.
How often is that coming out, Chris?
It's every Wednesday from at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And is it on Insta, YouTube, Facebook, all of them?
Yes. So it's on Facebook. I'm glad you said that. Facebook at Chrystee Pharris and YouTube at Chrystee Pharris. They're live, and you can also interact with us, ask questions, join in on the conversation on the video call. And sometimes we have guests and everything that come in. And I'm going
to put that up on the screen because Chrystee spells her name fabulous like we do.
Yay! Yay! And then I'm also I ended up a friend of mine named Michael created this show, this web series called Myth of Control, and it's about all of these friends that are stuck in a COVID situation. And what was so great and fascinating about what he created was that all of the actors are at home, and you're basically getting your significant other to do all of the camera work, the lighting, and the directors direct from their own home. So everybody's at home. Nobody is interacting. So they send them the lighting, the cameras, and all that. So not only did he ask me to be an actor, he also asked me to direct one of the episodes. So
that's excellent.
Yeah, first time directing.
Have you done your episode already?
Yes, we started shooting this past weekend, and I have one more actress that I'm working with. And what's so significant and so amazing about this experience is that I'm working with 2 deaf actors.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought it was going to be a challenge, and don't get me wrong, it's a challenge. But what I realized is it's not a challenge the way that I would think. The challenge is more with me about slowing down and really communicating with the other person and making sure that they're hearing and seeing what I'm saying.
And it's such a tough time too for them because with masking, it is a very, I'm sure we notice a difference. We're used to kind of reading people's lips too, even as hearing people, but it is a much bigger challenge.
Exactly.
I thought about making some masks because I've been making these masks. I thought about making some masks with a clear panel. And
you should.
So they can see the mouths move, but then it would be like who really, it would really need to be for the people they interact with the most, I would imagine.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind having one just so that people can see that I'm actually smiling at them. Yeah. Just because I want people to know that
I'm over here in solitary with nothing but some fabric. I will listen, Chrystee, think I'm kidding. By the end of the week, you're going to have a clear mouth face mask.
And I'm going to love it because again, there was these 2 Black people that walked into the store and they had their hair like fly. And I was like, oh man, y'all can't see I'm smiling at y'all. And they started laughing. I was like, that hair is dope. So
because I do love the walks, like you talking about walks. So I do walk every day. It does change everything. Like I'll be so like, ugh, and I'll go out. But I realized like nobody knows I'm smiling. So I tried to work on smiling with my eyes. I was like, can you see I'm smiling? I'm smiling at you, but they were just looking at me crazy.
They're like, why is she looking at me with me eyes?
I'm like, no, I'm smizing. I'm Tyra Banks in it.
You're like,
no, that did not work. So now I just wave. I do it's too funny.
Yeah, just
So tell me, how did you like directing? I did my first short film in December. I know. That's about mental health. Amazingly. I think I'm going to actually there's a bit about conservatorship and how hard it is to help people. I think even though it's not done because COVID throws a wrench in post and everything, I feel like it would be kind of informative. So I actually took a snippet today and I think I'm going to post it just because.
You should.
Yeah.
You should. I think you should.
I am. But
I think whenever you get your first instinct to do something, you're supposed to do it. The moment you,
but is that too? Yeah, all these questions come up.
That's when that doubt and stuff. As soon as you get the instinct, you should just do it. That's how I always Especially too when I feel like the Lord is using me. But go ahead.
Right. I know, because everything is so timely. It is the Lord. It is amazing. I see it in your projects. I definitely see it in mine. I wrote, directed, and was in it, which is insanity.
Yeah, I don't know how you did all that.
I don't know either. Like, girl, on like 2 hours sleep. My producer, she is so amazing, Londi. I could not have done any of it without her. Like, I think I was on, it's just spinning.
Yeah.
But how has your time been? It is so interesting working with differently abled talent and in isolation and social distancing.
And social distancing and trying to tell them, okay, no, move the light just a slab bit to the left. No.
That's
the
too
light.
Much.
Look. Yeah, no, just move. Okay, no. Okay, how do I explain this? Because they're reading it on caption. How do I tell her
stage right?
Yes,
right.
How to bring it down a little bit. How do I tell her? It was challenging, but it was a beautiful thing. I'm honored to have been her coach and to be able to direct her. And that also helped me through this time. So, and then I'm doing, I don't know when this is airing, but
I think we might, because we're topical and Kanye and everything. So I think I might push us to be the first one to air, which will be Monday.
Okay. So Monday. So then the other thing that I have won't air because it airs on Thursday. We're doing something for the Black Arts Matter where we're having all these artists perform and everything. But that's
with the web series, tell us what's the name of the web series. Does it have any social media handles?
It's called the social media is The Myth of Control.
I actually love that title so much. I love it.
So we think that we have control.
I think we have
the pandemic and all this stuff. We really realize we have no control over it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So, and then how soon will those episodes start airing?
I know that they're going to start. The editing process has already started. My editing process hasn't started because I have one more scene, one more day of shooting. But I know that they should be done in the next 5 days. Then I get to have the first dibs on it to see if that's the direction I want it to go in.
Yes, your director's cut. You better go get your director's cut.
And it's so great too, because I'm an actor in 2 of the episodes as well. So, and it was so funny because when he called me, he was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And I was like, you need to jump on it. Let's do it. And he was like, great. So I'm thinking he's going to ask me to be an actor. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, of course I'll be an actor. And he's like, yeah, well, yeah, that too. But I want you to direct. And he knew that I hadn't directed. I only directed musicals and, stage, but I never directed anything for film or television. And so he was like, yeah, I know, but I want you to do it. We want some women on the roster and you should be
wonderful. Absolutely. You should. Multi-talented artist. Absolutely. Well, I cannot wait to see it. And you guys definitely have to support. I just love how busy you are, and I love that you said, when everything first happened, I was depressed. You know what I mean? Like I sat down for a minute and I was just like, this is what it is. Because I feel like we also will put pressure on ourselves to be busy or to not be busy. Like whatever state we're in, we're so quick to think we should be in another state. So I love that you met yourself where you were. You let yourself be how you let yourself be in whatever state you were in. And then you felt like I need to do this, and you have gone about the path of doing it, and how these opportunities still exist during COVID. And Chrystee, Hustler 201 is a prime example.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I know you have to run to rehearsal.
I do. I have to get ready for Black people shit. I have to do the rehearsal for the Black Arts Matter. That's going to be airing on Thursday. And then, of course, I have to direct on Friday. So Wednesday, Black people shit. Thursday is the event for for the nonprofit. And then, of course, Friday is filming. So.
Oh, wow. Busy week. I just want to give you a preview. It's going to be cooler than this. But this is how far I be going with my mask. So I think I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it here. You understand? This is my eye shield, but I'm going to put it. I can't wait. I'm going to make your mask. I'm going to make your mask. I'm so excited. Okay, now I have my new task for the week. I got like 4 things myself.
All right.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
And don't forget, everybody, get out there and vote.
Go vote.
I want to leave with voting. You make sure you get out.
Get that mail-in ballot. We're in LA. They're doing electronic ballots here. We don't even get confirmations. I'm definitely mailing in and keeping my confirmation. So yes, please go vote. Please go vote. Please go vote. And please wear your mask. Yes. You don't have to put one with the eye shield on. Just just wear your mask. Thank you, Chrystee Pharris.
Thank you.
All right, Mom. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.